Welcome to our channel. My name is Jasmine.
And I'm Dave.
And this is Engineered by God, where we navigate life from a Christian perspective.
So, okay, if you click this video, you probably already know what's going on. But we're just gonna give a quick recap for anyone who's like, what is going on? So Chandler Moore, he's a pretty popular American Christian singer who's also part of the Maverick City group. And recently he got married, which is an amazing thing. And during his wedding ceremony, he's having fun and whatnot, and he posted some pictures of what was going on. And there was one photo in particular that got a lot of buzz from a lot of different people. Some people were like, man, this looks like a lot of fun, but other people were like, man, this is kind of inappropriate, especially as a Christian leader, to be putting out on social media. And so we wanted to talk about what we thought about this photo and if, it was overblown or not.
But before we get into our reaction, we want you to click the subscribe button so you can get more of our content. So our reaction. Dave showed me the picture and I'm looking, I'm like, okay, nice wedding, what have you. What is the issue? And so he told me what some people had issue with, and my original reaction was, you can't please everybody, right? People are always going to have something to say. They're always going to be upset about something. And so we looked more in depth into what some of the people were saying. And I think there is some validity to some of the comments people were making, but there were also some extreme comments, some mean comments like, your marriage is going to suffer and I'm not going to listen to Maverick City anymore, and basically like tearing apart him as a Christian. And right. You don't even know this guy, right? And so I think that, obviously that was very unnecessary and extreme and just really not called for, no matter what you think about the photo.
Yeah, and I think for me, so it's kind of hard because I didn't get to have an initial reaction because when it was presented to me, it was already with like a ton of opinions. Yeah. But if I just saw it and I didn't know anything about it, I'd have just kept scrolling. It would not have affected me at all. Mm-hmm. But when I did see all the reaction, you do kind of feel like a tug on both sides. Like you kind of see one perspective where it's like these people are married, they get to enjoy this amazing moment. Because if you've ever been married, mm-hmm. It's a great day. You're having a good time, right? Yeah. But on the other side, you do see the other perspectives like, hey, you're a Christian leader. This might not be the best thing to put out. Mm-hmm. And so there are definitely layers to this because we live in a super sexualized society. And because of how much, sexual content is just in your face all the time, oftentimes you might read something into an image that's not, actually there. Like in this channel, I've talked about my struggles with pornography, mm-hmm. and how for someone, they might be able to watch something and it does nothing to them. But for me, it might have, tons of triggers where I'm like, this is not something that's good for me. And it's clear that there are a lot of people who, when they saw that image, they were, for lack of a better term, triggered in some sense. And so we were thinking as Christians, do we need to be more mindful of the content that we put out, mm-hmm. that may elicit a reaction in someone else, even if that's not our intent? Mm-hmm. And in Romans 14, read it for yourself. Paul's talking about, how dealing with different believers with different levels of faith in terms of strong or weak faith. And he's talking about food, for example, and how he believes that no food is unclean, right? But if another believer he noticed was struggling or in distress because they saw him eating a particular food, because of love, he wouldn't continue doing it so that person's relationship with Christ wouldn't be, hindered. Yeah. And it does really show that even though at times something might not be quote unquote wrong for us to do, because of how it might be a stumbling block for someone else, we forgo that so that they can grow in their relationship with Christ.
And not even a stumbling block necessarily, but just you can perceive something in a different way, how they perceive it or how they think, mm-hmm. what they think you may mean by it.
Right. And at the same time, at the opposite ends of the spectrum where the people were judging him and, really coming hard at him. Mm-hmm. Christ says the standard that you judge, you're going to be judged by that same standard. And oftentimes when someone has an elevated platform, we judge them against this standard of perfection that literally no one can meet or has ever met except for Christ. Mm-hmm. And it's if I were to be judged by my, let's say this picture is bad. Let's say it's completely wrong and it's a mistake. If I were to be judged by my mistake and that was to be held over me forever, I can't imagine that weight dealing with that, especially with all these people just piling on over and over about oh, you made this mistake. Remember you did this. And so, but that's what's amazing about the gospel message, because we've all made the mistake. We've all fallen short of God's glory. Yet he sent his son, even though, like, oftentimes a lot of us aren't going to respond right to him. Oftentimes we do the things that we know we shouldn't do. He still sent his son to die for us and to take our place so that we could be seen as if we were perfect in God's sight.
Right. And, like, just some context behind the picture, because he posted a response to all the criticism he was getting. And in part of the response, he talked about just what was going on in that moment. And that, you know, him and his wife were taking pictures. They were having fun. They were the music was playing, and they were dancing with each other. She was twerking, whatever. And pictures were being taken. And this is just a result of, you know, the pictures that were being taken. And they were celebrating. Like, everyone celebrates, especially when you know that, you know, maybe you have been not engaging in in these type of activities because you're trying to remain, you know, pure. And so now they're married, now they can do these things, and so they're gonna do it. Like, and so I think there's nothing wrong in that, and them wanting to celebrate and share and all that type of thing. But I think that what is wrong is just the criticism that they were getting from it. And then, like, okay, you may feel like the picture is inappropriate, but is it your place to be the person who corrects him? Someone who doesn't even know him and is doing it in the comments. You know what I mean? Like, how is that really going to be received? And I think we also learn about discernment, right? When engaging with others, and maybe that's not the right time to say your messages. And especially all the hateful stuff we mentioned before, like saying that they're going to have issues with their marriage in the past, saying things about him and about his wife, and, you know, them as Christians and maybe not being, you know, the Christians that they should be, and I'm not going to listen to Maverick City anymore. Like, all of that is very extreme. Okay, if you stopped engaging or listening to whatever the people who were saying, then you wouldn't be listening to anyone at all, because everyone, you know, everyone does it, right? So I just think that a lot of things that were being said were very extreme and very unnecessary and not helpful at all.
Yeah, and I think for me, my ultimate point is, no matter which angle you come at it, there's correction for you. You know what I mean? Like, if you're like, yeah, you could do whatever you want, have a good time, post whatever you want. It's like, well, no, like, we are to fall under the lordship of Christ. And even though something might seem like harmless and whatever, like, I should be able to do this for the sake of another believer, maybe you should forgo that thing. But at the same time, if you're like, hey, you're not perfect and we're going to destroy you, like, obviously that's completely out of the Christian message. We all know that. That's you know, pretty straightforward. And like Jazz said, with the correction, like, you know, it's hard, because if you see something that's wrong, oftentimes people want to say something, and they really feel strongly like, hey, you're missing the mark, and they want to say it in love, and the comment section is their only way of doing that, then sometimes they're going to do it.
But don't curse them at the same time.
Right. I think, you know, just be mindful of how the words that you're going to say, because that's another person beyond the screen that's going to be reading that. You know, in the same way that you'd want to correct someone if they were face to face with you, have that same energy, you know, when you're typing the keyboard, because someone is reading that.
And yeah, and like for me, like I said, in terms of my reaction, I don't think that their actions were wrong. I don't think that they're terrible people and terrible Christians or anything. I do think that maybe posting the picture may not have been the best idea given the platform, that picture specifically, but they also posted a bunch of other beautiful pictures in the ceremony itself that really just showed the emotion that they were having, you know? So, you know?
But anyhow, I mean, that's kind of our thoughts on it. But we want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like, do you guys think it was like really inappropriate? Do you think it was overblown? Are you in the middle? Do you just not care?
Yeah.
But anyhow, if you like the video, hit that like button and subscribe so that you're, you know, tuned in for future videos, and hit that notification bell.
Right. So you never miss me post.
Yep.
Outside of that, see ya.